and get started, and we appreciate you all joining us for the U.S. Congress Congressional District number 3. With us, excuse me, sir. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. I just wanted to share with you the guidelines for today's interviews. This is we have a strict schedule that we'll adhere to without exception. This is an interview, not a debate, no redirect questions. Candidates are allowed 1.5 minutes to self-introduce, and then panelists are given 30 seconds to pose a question. Candidates have 1 minute to respond. If time allows, the audience members will be asked or invited to pose a question as well. This is not a forum to air personal grievances. So we welcome the conversation today, and we'll go ahead and start with Erin today. We'll have you do a 1.5 minute self-introduction.
Sure, thank you very much, Councilwoman. I'm delighted to be here. I am a third-generation Nevadan, born and raised here. My birth certificate says Sunrise Hospital, rural Las Vegas. So I've been very involved in the community. Never thought I would run for office. For 7 years, I was political director for the Attorney General. I also created a program called Emerge Nevada, which recruits and trains women to run. And my husband and I, my husband's a pediatrician, we also created the Children's Free Clinic of Southern Nevada. Like I said, enjoyed my role as a problem solver in the community without ever being elected to office. But I watched as my neighbors lost their homes, my friends lost their jobs, people working and getting paid a fraction of what they were paid years ago. And I watched as Congress refused to do anything on what was the most important issues, which is creating jobs and improving the economy. And that's when I decided that I was going to roll up my sleeves and run for office. I'm excited about it. This is my home. It always will be. I'm going to be fighting for the middle class, and I want to see my community return to the days where the middle class thrived, not just survived as we are doing right now. So that's why I'm running, and I'm excited and delighted that you asked me to be here.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bilbray.
Thank you.
Next, we have David Goossen.
Yes. Hello, thank you very much for having me here. I'm an independent candidate. My platform is no campaign donations, no political affiliation, reapply for government programs, and the fair tax. The reason federal government does not work is because of those reasons. It's just a fact. I don't deal in opinion. I just deal in facts. My guideline, right here in my pocket, Constitution. We'll start there first. If it's in the Constitution, there's a reason. If it's not in the Constitution, and you want it in the Constitution, put it in the Constitution. Make it an amendment. That's how you solve the problems. Government's way too big. It does not represent the people. Too much money in politics. There's only a two-party system. It does not work. They do not represent the people.
Thank you. Next, we have Randy Kimmick.
Yes, I'm a Libertarian candidate. Been in Nevada since 1998. Driven here by the high housing prices in California. I'm the Liberty candidate. You know, I believe in rolling back things like the NSA, the Patriot Act, the things that have stripped away the basic liberties and freedoms we've enjoyed since, 1215, you know, when they first established that we were citizens and not subjects. And right now we are subjects, and we're subject to basically the whims of those who rule us. And, you know, if I get elected, I would be rolling back what they put on us and restoring our liberties and our freedoms, and punishing those that have abused the system and, you know, looted us financially and every other way. And so that's kind of where I stand.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kimmick. Mr. St. John.
and I'm really sorry I'm sick. I am just alcohol, so I apologize for that. I think Erin and I will, even though I'm independent and she's Democratic, are going to agree on one thing. And I used to work for a newspaper, and I know how to read news. I know news like the back of my hand. And I read a story that literally got me off my chair, and I said, this is the scariest thing I've ever read. I'm not a career politician. This is the first time I'm running. And the idea that I tried to work out, or an idea that, and I think I'm just one of the ones that have come up with some sort of original idea to work with, is that what's going to happen is that every voter in our district, District 3, will vote on every piece of legislation that crosses my desk. Why is the reason for that? The reason for that, when everything is said and done, it's going to be a 50-50 ratio where I'm dividing what I do and then dividing it so the voters have a chance for their voice. They can be heard, their opinion can be heard, their opinion can be said what they want to say by the act of voting. And this will give them a secondary voting option. They can vote from the outside.
Thank you.
What I'm trying to do is
Thank you,
get them on the
Mr.
inside.
St. John.
Thank you.
So you're going to,
Yeah, so I have a conflict of interest with this one as well. As chairman of the Libertarian Party of Nevada, I have a candidate in this race. I'll be a non-voting member, but I would like to participate and ask questions.
okay. Why don't we start with Tasha?
Okay, my question's for you, all of you. It's a yes or no answer. We have something called the National Defense Authorization Act. Would you try to stop any more of the National Defense Authorization Acts going through, and would you try to repeal the ones that have, such as the Patriot Act also? It's like a spinoff of the NDAA.
This is a yes or no question for each one of you, so maybe we'll start with Mr. St. John and then we'll go down the line.
Yeah, I think I would repeal it. I mean, I think we need to cut it.
Mr. Kimmick?
Yes, we need to repeal it.
Mr. Goossen?
Yes, repeal it.
And we're specifically talking about the monitoring of phones and computers. I just want to clarify in the.
No, this is the NDAA. It's the National Defense Authorization Act. It gives the U.S. government the right to detain its citizens without due process. Indefinite detention.
Yes, I would. Yes, I would.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Baca?
Thank you all for being here this afternoon. Tony Doctor. My question is for the panel, for candidates. First, have you ever worked to help people get employed, improve the unemployment situation here? And as a congressman, what would you do to, how is your approach to creating more new jobs? What's your approach to creating new jobs?
Now, do you want to direct that to some
Can they all answer it? Or
As
that's a
long as
yes
they
or
keep
no?
it very brief.
I'd like to get all the answer. Yeah.
Okay, so Erin, would you start?
Sure. Yes, I have run a small business. Had to pay taxes, had to make sure that you could make payroll. But I think one of the things that I would prioritize in Congress for job creation would be investing in infrastructure, as well as investing in alternative power and energy. We have an overabundance in sun and wind. I think we should be investing in that, especially here in Southern Nevada.
Thank you very much. And David Goossen?
Yes, I was self-employed. I got a job for myself. The way to create jobs is through the tax code. If we implemented the fair tax and it was only 20%, people would have more money in their pockets, and that's how the economy works, supply and demand. It's that simple.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kimmick?
Yeah, I was a city worker, so I know how to destroy jobs. So, but to create jobs, what you need is less government, less rules, less regulations, less taxes, a smaller military. you know, and all those things. You need banking systems that work to create business instead of becoming some sort of out-of-control hedge fund that just makes money for money's sake. There's a lot to do to create jobs. Government has really nothing to do but get out of the way.
Thank you. Mr. St. John?
There are ideas that I have, one of which is that, first of all, there's 87,700 people that are unemployed as of right now. We are second to the bottom as far as the ratings. And so what is it that we have to do? One, based on experience, there is an idea that I have that has, I mean, it's tried, but not to the extent that I will be trying it. And it's called co-oping. And co-oping is...
Sorry, Mr. St. John, it's not fair that we give you more time than the other candidates. Please be brief with your answer.
Yeah, I'm trying to as best as I can. I'll just go down the list. One is co-oping, the other is diversifying, the other is giving the business community a chance to meet and talk things out. And third is to really invest in alternative energy.
Thank you, Mr. St. John.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Crittenden?
What are your feelings regarding the Second Amendment and gun laws?
And do you want that directed to specific individuals?
Brief answer for everyone.
So can we keep this very brief? Okay, let's start with Mr. Goossen.
Yes, I have a gun in my car. The Second Amendment, there's a reason for it. It's for a tyrannical government. It's not for hunting. It's not target shooting. It's for personal protection from any and everyone. It's just a fact.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Now, Mr. Kimmick?
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of the Second Amendment. Me and George Washington, he was a big supporter also.
Okay, thank you.
Guns everywhere made him happy.
Thank you. Mr. St. John?
And there's a story to tell, but I'm not against the Second Amendment. What I am for is just really background checks.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
I'm going to just say one more thing.
One more thing.
Is that okay? Or?
One more thing. Yeah, you just have to keep
The
it.
one more thing is that when I was in the 70s, I had a gun put to my head. So I know firsthand what it feels like. So that's why we need those background checks. Thank you.
I support the Second Amendment.
Thank you very much. David, Lindsay.
This would be for everyone. What do you consider to be the number one issue affecting our country today?
Why don't we go down the line and we'll do just one comment per person. We'll start with Randy.
Number one is liberty. Again, it's them stripping our civil rights away from us. And that's the thing that makes us special as a people. That's what the military fights for. I mean, you know, all the rest of it, if you don't have the civil rights, is pretty much meaningless because it just becomes a tyrannical government that's not responsive to anybody. So.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Mr. St. John?
Jobs.
Jobs? Okay. Ms. Kenny? All right. Bilbray.
Jobs in the economy.
And Mr. Goossen?
The deficit and the debt.
Thank you. Michael?
I'd like to thank all the candidates for being here today. Nobody likes to sit on that hot seat, but that's the way it is. Some of my questions have already been answered or asked by other panel members, but I'll go down to one of my lower ones. We hear about problems dealing with your colleagues, and I mean bipartisan cooperation. This is for everyone. Do you believe it's possible? Is compromise a dirty word? Or do you have credible ways to reach common ground? We're hearing that, you know, again, I mentioned earlier about my cynicism and apathy and some of my ignorance. How are you going to get things done representing your district? And do you believe in the ways to reach common ground? And if you do, give me some of your ideas.
Okay, we'll keep that brief, but we'll start with Erin.
Sure. You know, I'm in Nevada, and it used to really be the bad way that people did things in a bipartisan approach. It was about being a good neighbor. People can have different opinions, and they need to be respectful of each other. And that is how I've always lived my life. That's how I believe in politics. yes, I think it can be done, but we need to respect each other's opinions and know that we're not always going to agree. I don't agree with my husband all the time. So it needs to be an attitude adjustment, or we're never going to fix Washington, D.C.
He agrees with you, right? He's smart.
Mostly, yeah. We've made it 18 years.
Thank you. David, Councilwoman?
As an independent, I can talk to everybody, Republican or Democrat. It's just a fact. Once you decide to go Republican or Democrat, now you're pigeonholed. And that's where the problem is. It's only April. You're going to hear and you're going to see campaign rhetoric nonstop. They said this, we said that. How do you stop that? Don't be Republican or Democrat. If I get elected, history, politics forever changes in the country. Why? No campaign donations, no political affiliation. Who's going to be afraid of me then when I get to Washington? Everybody. They're going to say, wow, this is the beginning of the end of our parties. What are we going to do?
Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Randy?
Okay, yeah, I'm a libertarian, which means probably I can talk to nobody, because nobody up on Capitol Hill believes in what I believe in. They've let these bankers run amok, they've let them pass all these laws stripping our freedoms, and so if you like me, I'm just a statement. I'm a moral conscience up there telling these people, you know, what we've lost and what we need to get back. And until, you know, more people realize that, I'll be a lone voice up there, but I'll try.
Thank you. Mr. St. John?
You know, I think what's really important in government, as he had asked, is compromise. It is alive. And it can work. And so, you know, sometimes you have to kind of find your pact, and then you have to just keep expanding out and getting other people to, you know, to cooperate with each other. And like Erin said, I think it's really important that everybody just respect each other and their opinion. And I know, like her, my wife and I do not agree at times. And they'll let you know she wins sometimes. And so that's my answer.
Thank you.
Mrs. Gibson?
Coach was already answered.
Okay. Did you? We'll go ahead and start over with Brett.
Again, thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate it, taking time out of your weekend for this. I'm going to ask you the same questions I asked the last set of candidates. The main reason I'm involved with politics, it's going to sound a little crazy coming from a libertarian, is to limit the scope of the Securities and Exchange Commission, limit the scope of FINRA, and stimulate and increase small business. So my question to you guys is, what would you do as representative from Nevada in Congress to limit the scope of the SEC, limit the scope of FINRA, and encourage small business? That's for everyone.
Let's start with Mr. St. John, and we'll keep it brief.
I'm going to make it very brief to you, and I'm just going to take the last point that he said, is really stimulate small economy. The small business owners, those are the ones that really will supply more of the jobs, and that is my main concern, our jobs.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mr. Kimmick?
Yeah, well, you know, the SEC really doesn't regulate anybody but the people that aren't in the group. It's just a revolving door between Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley. They just, you know, when they get out of the SEC, they go there. Nothing's enforced. It's a sham organization, and probably needs to be abolished and something else set up that has some ability to work.
Thank you. Mr. Goossen?
The root of the problem when it comes to money is going to be the Federal Reserve. It's just a fact.
That's a separate issue altogether. Can we stay focused?
I'm sorry.
Exchange Commission.
When the government gets involved in the individual's right to trade or not to trade, that is when problems happen. You're going to get a conglomerate like Goldman Sachs, AIG, and the people aren't represented by them anymore. It's just a big conglomerate that's making decisions for all of us, and look what happens when it's disastrous.
Thank you. Erin?
Sure. I think there clearly are problems with the SEC. I think that one of the issues is there should be a longer period of time before federal employees at the SEC are allowed to go into private business or go into public businesses. So I think that's an issue. And I think with small businesses, I think we need to make it so we can streamline things. We make it easier for small businesses to get their approval and get their licenses, so they're not having to go to different areas of the government. We need to streamline and make it easier and less interference for small businesses.
Thank you. Thank you. Russia?
We are considered, in some countries, the bully of the world. Some say that we have over 900 bases in 63 countries. What would you do to help pull back the military-industrial complex that we have become? And would you have voted yes to the Iraq war? Short answers, please.
Thank you. And that's directed to everyone with short answers. We'll start with David Goossen.
Yes, what I would do is I would leave all countries. It just doesn't work for us. You want to have the embassy there, whatever, but you're right about that. Every time I look, it's ridiculous. One new base, and you got to wonder, what are they doing there? The answer is just to leave. I wouldn't have voted for any war. We're a sovereign nation. You'd have to come to the homeland. That's my opinion. I wouldn't go fight the battle. I'd have them come to us.
Erin Bilbray.
You know, I'm a mother. I would like to say that we don't need to be a strong force globally. I'd love to say that we can live in that type of world, but we don't. We have to have a strong military, and we have to have bases across the country. When it comes to war, yes, we need to be very cautious. But I do believe that if I was sitting in Congress at the time, I would have voted for the war.
Thank you. Mr. St. John.
I would have voted no for Iraq, but I would vote for what happened in Afghanistan and the reason why are women's rights. And that was very disturbing what I saw happen there.
Thank you.
And it's still occurring today.
Thank you. Mr. Kimmick?
I would have voted no on the Iraq war and every other war from after World War II on. Our military bases are really not to protect us. They're really to protect the petrodollar system, which is what we thrive on as a country. It allows us to print money without end and allows us to live better than anyone else in the world. And it's protecting us is a big lie, and we need to pull them home and put all the troops back in the country defending us.
Thank you. Mr. Baca?
Quick question. Obamacare, would you support it or repeal it?
Why don't we start?
You can start with me. If you want to start with me, that's
Mr.
fine.
St. John.
Just a real quick answer. I had a pre-existing condition. Was laid off from work. Not one insurance company would take me. And that's my answer, not one. And so when the Affordable Care Act came in, that gave me a shot. And that's the first time, you know, I've been paying taxes since I was 14 years old. And then I had one guy talk to over the phone about what was going on with me. He laughed at the other end.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Mr. Kimmick?
I'm against Obamacare. The health issue is really the cost of the services and the lack of competition. And as a kid, we could go to the doctor and it was affordable. Now it isn't. So it's really a cost issue and a government interference issue.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Goossen?
I would repeal the Affordable Care Act and opt to get a state-run medical exchange so people could have competition within the states and other states and get a pool of people together from other states. The lobbyists have made it so difficult for insurance to cross state lines. That's the problem. It's all the federal government. If you ran by the state, it would be fine.
Thank you. Erin?
Sure. I think I come at this from a very unique position, since my husband and I owned a private pediatric practice, as well as we created the free clinic. And I saw too many times that insurance companies were dictating the way that medicine were practiced and what medical decisions were being made. So yes, I believe in the Affordable Care Act. There's problems, they need to be fixed. But like I always like to say, when you have a crack in your wall, you fix the crack. You don't burn down the entire house. So we need to fix the problems, and we need a Congress that's willing to work together to make that happen.
Thank you. David, I'm sorry, did I skip over?
Oh, yeah, you did. I'm sorry. That's okay.
Will you vote your conscience or will you vote the will of the people in your district?
Let's start with Erin.
I will vote my conscience. I hope that will be similar, but I will vote my conscience.
David, please.
I'm going to vote my conscience.
And Randy,
I vote my conscience.
and Steve St. John.
I'm going to be different with all the people.
Thank you. And David, and Steve.
Again, this will be to everybody. If elected, what are your, can you just name 2 of your goals if you're elected? Just 2.
Let's start with Mr. St. John. 2 goals.
First are jobs, and secondly, this is called veterans. Veterans would be that would be my second priority, the homeless.
Thank you. And Mr. Kimmick?
Yeah, to pull back the military into our country, which would free up, I'm told, billions of dollars to help all kinds of people. And again, the liberty, restore our freedoms.
Okay. And Mr. Goossen?
I'd work on the tax code, and I would undo legislation that's on the books.
Thank you. Erin?
Create jobs in Southern Nevada through investing in infrastructure here and renewable energy here.
Thank you.
Well, I don't mean to focus on you, Ms. Bilbray, but I did some research last night on the internet for several hours, and your website was phenomenal. You started with just some basic broad strokes on your issues, jobs, but you ended with ethics. And I'm not trying to be an idealistic here, but I'd like to ask, again, how do you temper, or what is ethics or morality? I guess I shouldn't say morality. What does ethics mean to you? What does it mean to each panel? Each candidate? And how do you feel like you're going to stand out from what goes on back in Washington, D.C.?
Let's start with Erin, since it's directed to you.
Sure, that is an incredibly important part of who I am and why I'm running for office. And in the program that I created, Emerge, which recruits and trains women, part of the focus is on ethics and knowing that we need to vote our conscience to do what's right. As a mother, that's also a priority. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter to me if I go to Congress and lose the next time. What I want to know is that I did the right thing. And I want my family to always be proud of what I have left behind. So that does motivate me, and that does drive me probably more than anything else.
Thank you very much. Mr. Goossen?
My platform says it. Since I'm not taking campaign donations or political affiliation, I can represent anybody and everybody, young and old, male and female. When I get to Washington, it's easy for me to talk to the left, talk to the right, talk to anyone. It's the value system that we have in Washington that's broke. They get there, and then they don't hold true to their principles because of their ideology.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kimmick?
Morality. Legal isn't moral, and that's where I think a lot of the confusion comes from. People assume because something is legal, it's moral, but the worst dictator, everything he did was legal. So, you have to have a moral code, and my moral code is kind of do unto others as I do unto you, and the 10 Commandments. And so that's where I come from. I don't think, politicians get up there and every law they pass favors the strong over the weak. So, the more laws, the more corrupt. So that's where I'm coming from.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kimmick. And Mr. St. John?
I'm just going to keep it really simple, and bottom line is it's trusting who you are. That's the answer.
Thank you. And Karen, did you have anything you wanted to?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions?
Can I just say, I wanted to say one thing. The statement I just want to make is everybody, and I guess it's because I come from a military background, but the statement that I always hear in Congress is cutting back the military. Now, did you know under Ronald Reagan, when they had the strike, the air traffic controller strike, when they came back, or the ones that were allowed to come back, they found out that they had overhired about 5,000 employees just in that one department. So what I ask you to do is not just look at cutting the military, because, for example, the Marine Corps only represents less than 10% of the DoD budget. If you really want to learn how to run an organization efficiently, go ask the Marines, they'll show you how to do it. But there are other departments like EPA, Department of Energy, Agriculture, TSA, and other departments run by the government that are run really less efficiently than the military. So I would say look at those departments first so we can have a strong military, and then maybe look at cutting back. But it's always the first thing that people in Congress wants to do is because it's the easiest thing to do. But look at the other, those other departments, and they're protected because they have unions. Well, forget the unions, do the right thing, let's have a strong military, and cut back those, those other departments first, and then go to the military. That's just a statement.
Thank you, David. And Elena? Does anyone else have a question? Any of the panel members? Okay. Question?
Yes, my question is for Erin. You talk about sustainable development and whatnot. Do you know anything about Agenda 21 and what would you do to stop them from implementing their rules into the United States? You don't know about Agenda 21. It is the UN's agenda to tax and regulate everything that humans do. Pretty much we are bad for the earth, so they want to, the smart meters, that's Agenda 21. Common Core, that's Agenda 21. HOV lanes, the bike lanes, the IntelliStreets that we're putting in downtown, where they can not only just see what you're doing, they can hear what you're doing. That all concerns me. So when you say sustainable development, I'm all for protecting the earth, but I am not for it when it takes away our sovereignty. Would you be willing to look further into Agenda 21?
I'm absolutely, but I want to say this. I mean, I'm a Nevadan through and through. I believe that, you were talking about the UN, but I believe the federal government really should have a limited role in what goes on back in our states. I believe that very strongly. And I do not believe that anybody should be interfering with our phone calls, our computers. I think that everything that has happened with that is completely wrong. And I think one of the first people last summer to come out and say it as such. So yes, but just please keep in mind, I am a Nevadan through and through.
Quick question for everybody. Edward Snowden, are you guys familiar with him? Hero or enemy of the state? Right down the line.
Mr. St. John?
I'm going to say that it's really, I'm in the middle on that one. So I can't say either way, but I think sometimes certain truths are not the most pleasant to hear.
Thank you. Mr. Kimmick?
He's a hero. He's one of the few patriots we have left. I'm a big supporter of what he's done and spreading light on what the government's doing to us. It's very important. People like him to stand up and take a stand. Yes.
Mr. Goossen?
You're right.
This is going back to ethics, and ethics are not black or white, and I think this is a good example of that. I would say with the information that I have right now, I would more likely go on the hero side, but I don't think that we can make a definitive answer on that.
That's fine. Well, my point is this: just like every other agent, they all make note of the Constitution protecting this, not an administration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that will give Mr. Becker?
Yes or no question. Pro-life or pro-choice? Sorry.
I'm for women's rights.
Pro-life or pro-choice?
No, I'm for women's rights.
Pro-choice.
I tell you, I'm for women's rights.
And then Mr. Goossen?
Pro-choice.
Pro-choice.
Is there anyone else who wishes to offer a question from the audience? Okay, seeing no one, we'll go ahead and conclude this debate, this interview process, and thank you very much for your participation.